Hi Stampers, it's Madeline from StampWithMadelyn.com, and I am going to the Stampin' Up! Conference in the beginning of April in Richmond, Virginia. And so at these conferences they do a fun swap where you swap with people on the floor. So during breaks at the meeting, and during lunch, you can have a bunch of cards that you swap with people. So you go up to people and ask for their card, and then you give them your card and you swap. So I want to talk a little bit about how I get ready for these swaps so that you guys could, if you've never done a swap, you can kind of get a sense of how it goes. So it's really hard at times because you're making a lot of cards at once. So I have learned that you need to do it like a conveyor belt. So what I do, so this is the card I'm making first for the swap. So I love the Everyday Hero stamp set, and I haven't seen a lot of people using it. So I wanted to use it so that people could get a sense of how cute it is before the catalog goes out. So I used Everyday Hero, I used Bermuda Bay, Delightful Dijon, and the Tip Top Taub. So Delightful Dijon and Tip Top Taub are actually going out of circulation May 31st. So that's going to come up quick. And I love the Delightful Dijon, so I'm really sad it's going away. So I wanted to make a card with it. So I used basic black ink, the Brights Designer Series paper pack to get her cape. I did some paper piecing. I used the Stitched Shapes framelits for these two circles, and that's it. So let's get started and I'll show you what I do to get ready. So I decided that I was going to make 55 cards. So what I do is I get all the dimensions. So I do a sample card first like this. So I know that I'll be attaching this to a card base, and sometimes you don't need to. So just be careful. Some organized swaps, they require that you have a card base on it, but some you can just do a card front. I am going to attach them to cards because I know that when I get swaps, I use these cards. So if someone didn't put a card base on it, it would be kind of disappointing because I would like to use it. So I will attach a card base to every single card. And also because, as you can see, I saved some paper on the back here and I don't want that to show through. So I got all the dimensions ready because this is my sample card. So I knew that the first layer would cover the entire card base, so it was 4.25 by 5.5. Then I did the Delightful Dijon at 4 by 5.25, and then I did the Tip Top Taub at 3.75 by 5. So that way you'd get all those nice colors, and it would be a nice 3-layer card, and it also has an embellishment. This is on a Stampin' Dimensional to give her some 3D effect. So what I did was I wanted to save paper because yes, this is a lot of paper, but people are going to appreciate that you put so much time in and so many materials. So in order to feel like I've used a lot of, I've done good at saving materials, I took the Stitch Shape framelits, these two circles here, out of the cardstock that I used for the background. So that's a paper saving tip, is you can, if you do any kind of cutout for your card, you can always use the background colors that you're covering up. And that way you can save paper and everything will match very nicely. So as I said, I did use a Stampin' Dimensional for this top circle, and I also used the Stampin' Up! Right markers for coloring her uniform in and her little mask and her hair. So I got all the dimensions for these papers, and then I go to town. So this is what makes it go super fast. I cut out 55 of the Tip Top Taub, then I cut out 55 of the Delightful Dijon, so lots of paper here. Then I cut out 55 of the Bermuda Bay. So here I have everything getting all set to get my swap nice and ready to go, so that I can just start stamping and get done quicker. If you're just doing one individual card at once, like cut one, cut one, cut one, then do all the stamping, then glue it down, then come back, cut one, that goes very slow. So yes, this will take a lot of time, but at least you have everything ready for you to keep going and get the card done fast. The next thing I did was I got out my Brights Designer Series paper and I stamped all the capes. So all the capes I would need with a few extras so that I can go ahead and cut all these out so that they are ready to glue onto her once I stamp. So that's the second step. So I did all the paper cutting, then all the capes, and now I'm going to show you the next step. So what we do next now is cut out all the circles in the big size and the little size. So you want to get them all cut so that they're ready to go. So as I said, I just used the stitch shape framelets with my Big Shot, and this is super easy and will save you a lot of time. All I do is I center it on these, because you are going to be covering everything up on the Bermuda Bay and the Delightful Dijon with the Tip Top Taub. So I just center it as best I can, but as long as you know that it'll be covered, anywhere is fine. So I'm just going to center it on this and push it through. And there we go. So then what you do is you create a pile. You create a pile of these and a pile of these, and you get going. So I'm going to do it for all the 55 pieces of Bermuda Bay cardstock. And just so you know the sizes of my circles, I used the second to smallest stitch with sheer or stitch shape framelets, and then the one that was just one bigger than that. So I'm going to do these 55 and we'll be right back. Okay, so as I started to cut these, like I said, you want it to be like a conveyor belt and get everything done as quick as you can for a swap while keeping up the quality. And so something that I learned, and you learn as you go, so you might find other tips that you find helpful when you're doing a swap. I'd love if you'd share that in the comments just to help us all. We all love helping each other. So this is one of my tips. As I started cutting, I realized that I could do 2 at a time. So because I'm using 2 different framelets, I'm laying out the paper and doing 2 at a time. So you just want to be careful that they're not overlapping so that it doesn't cut into your other paper. But when you do it like this, you're getting it done twice as fast. So instead of just doing the Bermuda Bay all and then going and doing all the Delightful Dijon, you're getting 2 done at once, which is huge. A huge time saver. And you have lots of room to do it. So then there you go. You get 2 of them done instead of doing 1 at a time. So just a tip while you're cutting. Okay, so now that we have cut everything out, we have all of our stitch shaped circles in Bermuda Bay and Delightful Dijon cut out. We also have all of these. They have the circles in the middle, but they're going to be covered. So this makes it so you get it done quicker, so that we did 2 at a time through the Big Shot. And look at how much, it doesn't take much time. It took me about, I would say, 25 minutes to do all the cutting for this. So another important tip that I wanted to share with you is that you need to be very careful of the rules that are in the swap that you're in. So if you're in an organized swap, either through Stampin' Connection or with your team or on Facebook, and also with the conference, there's an organized swap I'm doing at the conference. There are rules that go along with those swaps. So a lot of them are, you have to do like a 2-layer card with an embellishment or a 3-layer card without an embellishment. Those are the kind of things you want to look at. How it's packaged. A lot of swaps have a certain way they want it packaged. So like for these, there's no rules, because this is a swap where I'm just going to be passing out to fellow demonstrators at the conference, and they can say no. You know, like some people don't swap. So this is just, I wanted to get some ideas from others, and so a lot of people bring different swaps with them. So there's no rules for this one. But if you're taking a class or an organized swap, again, there are rules that you do want to follow. So make sure to check that out before you start making your swap cards. So next, what I'm going to do is do all the stamping. So what I do is I do it like an assembly line again. I have all of the Tip Top Taub papers cut out at the dimensions I want, and I need to do all this background stamping on them. So what I do is I go through and I stamp all the buildings. So I'm going to go through and stamp all the buildings on all 55 of these. And then I go back and I stamp all the wows on all of them. Then I go back and do the cloud around the wow on all of them. And then I do the spotlight on all of them. So my tip is that it goes a lot faster if you're doing one stamp on all of them and then coming back and doing another stamp on all of them, instead of doing each individual stamp. It helps a lot with time saving. Now, the buildings, you will need a scrap piece of paper behind you so you don't make a mess. The important thing about these stamping pads is that they do soak up ink, but they don't soak them up fully where they're not going to get on your cards. So you want to scrap paper out because the buildings for me did overlap. So like I said, I'm going to be using basic black and I am going to be overlapping. So let me show you what I will be doing. I'm going to tap, tap, tap these buildings on the basic black. Make sure they're nice and inked. You do need the piercing pad for sure because this is a photopolymer stamp set. Now, I start all the way at the left and I do the building here. I press and hold for 3 seconds, make sure it's nice and inked. And then I'm going to go again. And this is the one that's going to go off the edge here, and that's what's important about the scrap paper. I line it up, press down, make sure it's nice and firm. There we go. So then we're going to go through and do that on all of the tip top tops. Now, here is a tip. You're going to be going through and doing these very fast. You want to make sure that you're not getting ink on the block. You want a block that is the same size as the stamp because you don't want to get those raspberries on your paper. Especially for a swap, you need to be very neat and tidy because these are cards that demonstrators are going to be using to show to fellow customers. And so you need to make sure that you're doing it neatly. And there's always 2 sides. So if you mess up on the front, you can always turn it over and do it again. So now what I'm going to do is just go through the 55 and do all of the buildings. So you just want to make sure that you're inking it fully and that you're pressing it firm for at least 3 seconds. And then just go through on all of them and do this. And then we'll come back and do the next stamp. Okay, so now you should have all of your swap cards stamped with the buildings along the bottom. Now, the next step that we're going to do is I'm going to do the wow. So I'm going to go through on all of my 55 cards and stamp the wow. And so I'm going to be doing like a cloud around it, as you can see from the example. But I do the wording first. So I'm just going to go through, and you could do the cloud first if you're worried about your placement. But I'm going to go through all of these and put the wow on there. Okay, so now you should have the wow on all of your cards for the swap. Now I'm going to add the cloud, or the, you know, like word impact, like the quiet sound onto your card. So you just want to fully ink this stamp, and then you're going to center it. Hold it for 3 seconds. Make sure you get pressure on the whole stamp. And there you go. So you're going to go through and do that on all 55 of the cards. Okay, so now when you have all of your cards having the words and the cloud, our last step for this background is the spotlight. So I did everything on the background here in basic black. So now you're going to go through the entire amount of swap cards. So for me, 55, and you're going to add the spotlight to all of them. There we go. So go through and stamp your spotlight on all of your cards. So now you should have all of your cards stamped with the words, the outline here, and the spotlight. And again, it doesn't take that long because you're doing it in like a conveyor belt assembly line sort of method, so that you're doing one stamp on all of them at a time. And I think that is just a huge important thing that you should do. So now what you're going to do is the stamping on your small delightful Dijon circle. So what we're doing is the head of the Supergirl and the body, and that's it for stamping. So I put them on 2 separate stamps. So I do the head first. And you want to make sure that your stamps are fully inked, and you could even prep it onto a scrap paper first. So these are already prepped. So you want to put it close to the very top, put some pressure on the whole stamp. There we go. We want her ponytail to be like right touching with the stitches. Then we're going to go through on all of the circles and just put her head on. Okay, so now you should have all of your circles with the heads on them. Then you're going to do the body on all of them. So I had these on separate stamps. Just make sure you don't get ink around the block. Then you're just going to center it with the head on here. And there we go. So there is your Supergirl. So once you get the body on all of them, then the last step for this is to color. So I'm going to lightly color in, I use Bermuda Bay. I'm going to color in her mask just so it would match the paper. You could do any color you want. I do the mask and her body. So you would go through on all of your stamped Delightful Dijon circles and go through and color. Now, you could use this technique for any swap card you're doing or any card you're making a lot of. By doing individual steps like that and doing it on all of them, it really helps you to get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time and not feel as overwhelmed with how much you need to do, at least for me. But again, I would love if you would share your tips below on how you get ready for a swap, because I think that helping each other is just so great, and really I learn a lot from my viewers and from my team and from my club, so I would love to hear from you. So now I'm going in with the basic black marker and just coloring in her hair. And again, this could be any coloring you want. You could change the entire colors of the card if you wanted to. I did not see a lot done with this Everyday Hero set, and I absolutely love it. But same for me, I haven't really used it, so I wanted to do a swap card for the conference with it. Okay, so then you would go through on all of your circles and color her in. So now that we have all of our circles stamped with the Supergirl, colored in, everything's done, then you're going to take this designer series paper that we stamped earlier with all the capes, and you're going to cut them all out. So I cut them right below the black line so that the black line is still showing. You'll want smaller scissors. This is just what I have on hand here. Just cut right below the black line so you still get that. You want that line so that it shows the outline of the cape. So you'll want to cut every single one of your capes out. Once all of your capes are cut out, then all you need to do is attach them to your Supergirl. I cover up a little bit of her arm and I do it below her face. There we go. Look how cute. So now you want to attach all of your cutout capes to every single one of your Supergirl circles. Once you're done with that, all there is to put together all of the cards. So what I do is I put them into piles. And I just go to work. I have my pile of Bermuda Bay, my pile of Delightful Dijon, and then I have my pile of my stamped Tip Top Top. So then all we need to do is adhesive everything together. So the Bermuda Bay is the bottom. Then the Delightful Dijon. So I'm going to put adhesive on the outside of this. I'm leaving the card base until the last step. Just because some swaps you don't need a card base. So you just want to center this on here. And then you put your Tip Top Top on. And again, you'll see that our circles that we cut are going to be covered with this, which is great. Really gives you that paper saving that you need. Okay, and then we're going to take our Bermuda Bay circle, put this down first, right here. I make it so it's just kissing the edges of the Bermuda Bay first layer here. Then I like to put our Supergirl on a dimensional, so it kind of pops and makes it a 3D card. And for a swap, you could always cut these in half if it's a small enough circle to save dimensionals, but this is pretty big, so I'm going to do a full size dimensional. Center it in here. And there we go. So then you would just go through and do all of yours. So I have 55 to put together. Then the last step that you're going to do is you're going to either put it in a clear envelope or attach to a card base. So I'm going to attach to a card base first. So our card base for this is going to be 5.5 by 8.5, and then we are folding it in half and getting it nicely scored here. And then all we do is attach this to our card front. So depending on your swap, it's really up to you if you want to attach it to a card base or not. And like I said, it's just a personal preference. I don't mind attaching it to a card base. That way they can use it later on. So you just want to center it on your card base, push down, and there you go. So an important thing with a swap, you don't want any back stamp on there that has your name on it. What you're going to do is put this in a clear envelope, usually the Stampin' Up! Sells, and I'll have it below in my links. And then you put like a business card in or a post-it note with your contact information in case anyone has any questions for you. So I hope you loved this video, and I am very excited for you if you're getting ready for a swap for the conference. I'm going to Richmond, Virginia, so please comment below if you're going to that conference. I'd love to see you there. And these are just some tips for making your swap cards and make it go quicker. If you have any tips, I'd love to hear them. Please comment below. And again, I use the Everyday Hero stamp set for this card. For now, stampers, keep stamping. Bye!